Yo, what's happening people? My name is Rudra Kush and welcome back to a new video. So in this video, I'm gonna break down my track Singularity, which is recently released on Infinite Resistance. So this track is more like, a mix of progressive house and melodic techno, I can say. But I really like this track. So in this video, I'm gonna break down the entire track. We will be looking at like each and every layer and how I came up with that and all the MIDIs, the samples, the presets that I'm using and how I process them. So yes, so that's the plan for today. So without wasting any time, let's jump into the video. So I'm gonna break down my track Singularity, which recently got released on Infinite Resistance. And just to play a little snippet of the track, this is how it sounds. Alright, so that's the track. It's released. It's finally out now on Infinite Resistance. So let me break down this track for you. So I'm gonna start with the low end. So this is my low end. Let's just loop, this section because this part has pretty much all the elements. So this is like the peak of the track, the climax. So let's start with the low end. So this is how the low end sounds all together. So it's like pretty deep sounding, punchy at the same time and very driving. So let's break down the layers. So we do have a kick. Sometimes what I like to do is I try out, some kicks and maybe, after like as I'm like, more towards completing the track, I decide to change the kick. So I think that's exactly what I've done here. That's the kick that I was using earlier. It's very, very punchy. And I guess like that's what, that's not required for this kind of track. I was looking for a little softer kick, but at the same time, like deep kick. So I guess like this one just fits better with the track. So that's why I decided to choose this kick. So on the kick itself, let's just turn this one off and let's do this. And I'm gonna turn off the synth group so it doesn't just keep on ringing, let's just turn off everything for now. So that's my kick sound. And usually like I keep it like, very short, but I like around, like 100 and 150, something like that. But for this track, I just felt, like this longer kick sounds better with the bass. So for me, it was fitting good. So that's my kick. So it has a little bit of transient shaper, which is just increasing the attack of the kick, making it a little bit more prominent in the track. And then I was using this drum bus. Then I, just turned it off. And then we have this EQ, which is cleaning up this low mid frequencies and also like, just boosting the little bit of high end to make it like more sharper in that mix. So that's pretty much it for my kick. And the next thing is this bass group, and this is how it sounds like. So same thing, I started with this bass and Later on I decided to change it, and now this is the sub bass. So I guess I changed the pattern as well. So if you look closely, it was like this earlier, and then for some reason I decided to change it to this one. So I guess that's why I decided to, choose the longer kick, because now if you look closely, like this bass note, earlier it was overlapping with the kick. So if you are making, like this kind of pattern, it's just simply, 16th note. So make sure, like you are using like a shorter kick. But for this track, I decided to go with, a longer kick. So that is why I decided to change the MIDI pattern to just this off note. So that's why, like the bass, the kick and the bass, they are not like clashing with each other for this, and they're not fighting for the space. All right, so moving on, let's just loop this section. So we have this driving bass. And on the sub bass, in terms of effects, I just have an EQ which is cutting off like the high end, just to make it a little bit more softer, and then followed by a side chain. And as you can see right here, like where the kick ends and then the bass starts, so they're not really clashing with each other. And then we have this bass. So this is the preset that I'm using, Camel's Feeling. So it's pretty simple. It's just two saw waves with a very sharp envelope which is controlling the filter. And that's the MIDI if you want to see. So this is just like the octave. So the track is in F sharp, and I'm just using like the octave. So it was just 16th notes. So just for some interest, I moved the last note up an octave. So it gives this driving feel. And as compared to this one is also very nice, but I just, like this better. And it goes really well with the bass, with the sub bass. And then there's one more layer. And in terms of processing on the this bass, I do have an EQ which is cutting the sub bass from that, and there's an OTT just with 8%, and then same thing, shaper box we have with 65% of the mix. So it's not completely ducking the sound. We still have, it's still like bleeding into like the kick, but that's totally fine, because I don't want it like super bumpy. I want to like feel all those, like these notes as well. Because if I completely duck it, then these notes will completely be like silent. So I still want that, driving feel. So for the mid bass, I usually prefer to keep my like the mix way down, like around 60-70%. And then this layer doesn't have much either. So just a EQ which is cutting the low end, and that's pretty much it. And this is the sound that I'm using. Pretty nice sound. So the whole low end, so on the group I did have some glue compression, but I decided not to use it. And on the main group I have the glue compression. So this is basically compressing the kick and the bass together, and we are just trying to make it a little more glued. And this one is just to I think there's here, so just cut out the bass for just moving into this cool section. So this automation is just for that, and that's how like the full low end sounds like. So as you can see, like very little compression just to make things more glued. Alright, so let's move on to drums. So the drums are pretty basic, nothing really scary. So that's so here everything is playing. I'm going to quickly go through all of the drums. So this is the snare. So it has some room reverb, and on the group again I have some glue compression for gluing the drums together, and a filter just to like transition from one section to another. So I think I haven't really used it. Yeah, just a little bit of here. Yeah, and then yeah, that's pretty much it. So this is how the whole group sounds like. So that's the snare. I have some transient shaper again to make it a little bit more punchy in the mix, and I'm just increasing the attack by 15% to make it like more crispy in the mix. And then we have all these like shakers and hi-hats, and pretty simple, they're pretty simple. So we start with the off hat. And in terms of processing, I don't usually like do much processing on my drums. It's just basic EQ and sometimes compression. That's pretty much it. And so this is the off hat, and this is gonna be my 16th hat. So this one has something interesting going on. So let me explain you quickly. So we start with the hi-hat, and then I'm cutting the low end. And this is something happening interesting. So I'm using a vocoder right here, and on the noise settings, you can choose noise, and I'm automating this release. So which gives it like more open feel. So it's continuously like changing, and it is on random mode. So I'm using this very slow LFO, which is automating the release time of this vocoder. So it just keeps the hi-hat interesting. And then we have the sidechain from the kick. And then this is the shaker loop. Pretty basic. And I think I don't have anything. Yep. And this is one more loop, like one more shaker loop. So this is the hi-hat, and I guess I'm not really using it. Yeah, so this one I was using it in the mix, but later on I decided it wasn't really necessary, so I just turned it off. And this is like a percussion loop. Again, just some basic EQ and sidechain, nothing much. And yeah, I think I'm not using this either. Yeah, so this is also turned off, so I'm not really using it. So in terms of drums, it's pretty simple. So this is how everything sounds together. Very progressive, and progressive. Yeah, it sounds very progressive. So I'm using this EQ to give the overall drums a little bit more air. So I'm using the 16K band, and I'm boosting it around 3 dB, which gives it a little bit more air. So makes a little bit more brighter. So very subtle stuff, but of course, like it makes difference in the overall mix. All right, so my favorite part, the synth section, probably this is the most interesting section for a lot of people. So I don't have really much going on. It's pretty simple. I'll explain what all those layers are. So let's start with the very first layer. First of all, on the group I have nothing, and this is the not a lead but more like a driving pluck sound, so it goes really well with the low end. So very nice. So this is how it sounds like by its own. So the sound is like pretty simple, just like two oscillators but with a very sharp envelope. I mean, like, these sounds are like pretty easy to make. All you have to do is like just choose two wavetable or three wavetables. I like to use like at least two because it gives a lot of character, but this was like a preset from Sam Smyers. This guy has really good presets. But yeah, in terms of sound design, it's like pretty simple. So all you need like is a sharp envelope like this, and you can assign it to the filter. So the filter is the thing that gives that plucky feel. So if I increase the decay, you will understand like this is how it's affecting the filter. So this shape. And if you if you have like the basic setup, and then you can just simply change like the wavetable from here. I'm not going to do that because it's going to change the sound. But once you have like the basic setup, like this envelope is controlling the filter, you can just like change the wavetables and maybe tweak some of these settings, and you will end up like with a completely different sound. So just a cool tip right there. So yeah, it goes really well with the bass. It's more like a mid bass for me, but I decided to keep it in the synth section. I don't know why, but yeah, it's here. And next we have this. So yeah, in terms of processing, I have absolutely nothing, just a EQ and a sidechain, and that's pretty much it. So moving on, we have this drone sound. So this is playing pretty much the entire track, giving the track the overall the atmosphere. So again, I have an EQ, some reverb on the some reverb with super massive on 26% of mix, and this is the preset that I'm using. I should cut more lows, but yeah, I mean, like, that's fine. So sounds very nice with the low end. All right, so so we have let me see what this is. All right, so I'm gonna move on to these at the end, but let me just break down these things first. So these are like more like the background stuff, what's happening. So these are all like the background elements. So the main if I turn this off and if I now play, so this is basically the main theme of the track. So we have this main lead that's happening, and then we have this melody that's playing. So if I play these two, this is how this sounds. So sometimes what I like to do is I like start with like a MIDI clip, and I think I did started with a MIDI clip right here, but I like 99% of the time, like I just change it quite a lot. So using like a MIDI clip, it just gives me like some sort of direction, but I along the process I usually like end up changing it completely. So I use like MIDI sometimes, not all the time, but very rarely, to start with like a MIDI clip, and then just change it like how I feel, like just making the track. So this is the melody. If you are interested in that, it's pretty simple, like nothing crazy. So let me just play you that single file. And we have like three layers for this melody. So this one is this so this sound is very plucky, so it's more in the higher register. Again, like very simple plucky shape, which is controlling the filter, and just two oscillators. And then this is the second layer. So in this one, not all the notes are playing. So I have like the exact same MIDI, but not all the notes are playing. I'm just like, exaggerating like, certain part of the melody, like this here, this one note, and then this section right here. So it's just gives, some variation and makes the lead a little bit more interesting. Like that. So if I play it with this, you will understand what I mean. So it's just exaggerating the melody, like this part. And this, I do have like one more layer which sounds like this. So with this layer, what I'm trying to achieve is like to make the sound a little bit more, full. So it's basically, a completing the whole sound. It's acting as like, like the background. So these two, this is basically the main sound that you like hear, but this just completes, makes like it's basically the body of the track. Not the track, I mean like the melody. And this one is just exaggerating the notes. So this is how all the three layers sounds like. So this is again like the main lead sound, but it just sits very well with this, and they both like make one big sound. So the attack of the sound, right? So the attack, the initial like the pluckiness, it comes from this layer. So this is like making it like very sharp and punchy, and whereas this lead, it's just making it's like it's acting as a body of the sound. So it's like more full and more detuned, and with the longer decay, and yes, so that's the whole sound. And in terms of effects, I have not processed it too much, but of course you can hear there's a lot of delay happening. So on the layers itself, we just have an EQ and compression. Same thing here, just an EQ, just cutting the low end. And this one, same thing. And I think I have done some processing on the group itself. All right, so looks intimidating, but it's very simple. So first of all, we have this auto filter, which I'm using to slowly bring it in and out of certain sections of the song, like this. So as you can see, it starts slow and then builds up, and then it goes down, goes up, goes down, goes up. So that's how like like these sounds, they just like sounds interesting in the track. All right, so let's just run off the delay for now. So this is auto filter, and then we have this delay. So I'm using like this in ping pong, which is 23%, but with a lot of feedback. And then this is thermal, one of my favorite plugins. This is just distortion basically. You can choose, from here a lot of presets. This sounds cool, but I'm using this can go, pretty wild. So I like to use it like I like to like play with this tri-wet. So right now, as you can see, I'm using only like 50% of the effect. So that's how it sounds with the distortion. So I have a little bit more distortion on the top, which is, the saturator. And it's basically one of the Ableton stock effect. And I really like it, especially on this soft sine algorithm. Next, I have this free clip. This is once again a free plugin. And all this, so what this is doing is just clipping off the transients, because I noticed, like it was just there was like a very sharp peaks in the waveform. So I decided to use like a clipper. So it's so it really helps, like in mastering stage, because if your mix has a lot of peaks, like the final limiter, it's gonna push the whole track down. So before, like going to master, I like to, like control like my sounds. So this clipper is basically just clipping off the very sharp transients. And in this way, like when it goes to the master, I can basically push the master a little more, because there's no like sharp peaks in the mix. So that's why I have this clipper here. As you can see right here, do you see that red, being cut? You see that sharp peak? So this sharp peak was, it chopped off. All right, so next I have this EQ, cutting the low end and just giving a little bit more body to overall group, and just increasing this frequency right here a little bit. And then I have this compressor, which is sidechain basically, and I do have this plugin called Resolve. So basically this is very similar to Track Spacer. So what it does is like I'm taking the input from this big lead group, which is the main lead sound here, right here. So when these leads are playing, so the exact same frequencies from these leads, they are triggering this whole group, and it's basically, compressing the same frequencies in this one. So I'll show you what I mean. So and let me play the leads also. So you see like how the frequencies are getting ducked, when these leads are playing. So it's just making like, space, because if you see like, the notes are overlapping here. So that's the reason why I have this Resolve plugin. And I think this was like free. It's from Waves, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, so this was free for a limited time. They usually like release this kind of stuff pretty every year. So just keep an eye. It's this one was free, I guess, and that's why I downloaded this, and it was nice. So that's why I have this Resolve. And so yeah, this is like the main secondary melody, you can say, and this is the primary melody right here, and this is how it sounds like. So pretty long delay. So the first layer, it sounds like this. So that's the main layer that you hear in the track, but we also have this. Again, just to make it like a little bit more, you know, you can say like depth. I'm like, trying to make this sound, like more immersive in a way, that it feels like, it's like very big in the mix. So that's how they both sounds together. Let me just turn off the delay. Where is the delay? Is it the delay? Oh, right here. All right, so I'm just gonna turn off like all the effects from here. And if you now listen, so this is how the main layer sounds on its own. And if I play it with this, how, so notice how it adds, to the atmosphere of the lead. It just makes it like, sound like more immersive, I guess. So in terms of processing, so first of all, like this is a very nice preset. This is from the producer school, the Ritual. That's the name of the preset. Um, Very nice. And in terms of processing, so first of all, I have like a very long delay. So it's around 45% for the mix, and the feedback is quite cranked up. It's 85% of the feedback, and the drive is 17%. So I like to give the delay, like some drive, because it just like you can basically hear it like ringing for a longer time. It just makes the delayed notes, like it brings it up in the mix. So I like to give, like this. I like to play with this drive, and then we have this reverb, I guess. So basically, what I have done here, I'm like side chaining, the lead. So I'm basically sidechaining the reverb by its own sound. So the way I have set it up is I created this audio effect rack, and I have these two chains. So one is with the reverb and this side chain, and this is just the dry signal. So I'm taking the input from the same like lead sound, which is this big lead. So the sound itself is triggering this compressor, and when it does, so it ducks the delay. And when there is no sound happening right here, the delay comes back up. So it just in this way, like there you will still hear the long reverb, but at the same time, when the actual notes are playing, so the reverb is being ducked. So it just makes the sound, little bit more upfront, and it just, doesn't get washed away with the reverb. And after that, I have just a simple EQ, cutting the low end and the high end a little bit because it was getting too harsh. So yeah, I mean, like that's pretty much it for the lead. And this preset, I have just, serum and nothing else, and then EQ. That's it. And on the group, I'm also like, using this glue compressor to compress and, like make the two sounds, sound one. So glue compressor, it's really good, like to make the sounds, like they're like, glued together. So I usually, have this on groups basically. And then I have this saturator again on soft sine. I really like this preset. And side chain, and then just this filter, which I'm using to automate, in certain sections like this. So moving on, I have this sound right here. So I really like the preset. So this is how it sounds like. So this LFO, that's what making it like super interesting. So this is, opening up the filter, slowly. So which, each note basically, like with each note, like the filter opens up. So it's on free mode. It means it's just always running. So that's why, it's like, it's very interesting because it's not, controlled by the tempo of the song. It's just freely running. And also like the velocity. So this velocity is also controlling the cutoff, which means so the notes that are higher in velocity, they will be, more open as compared to these low ones. Like that. So this is just basically, like happening in the background, just to give the track a little bit more, rhythm. And this is how it sounds. If I turn off these groups, where is this automation happening? Okay, so right here. So let's just turn off the volume for now. So that's how it's, making the background of the track a little bit more interesting. So in terms of processing, I don't really have much, just a EQ and sidechain, and that's pretty much it. And next we have this pad sound. So as you can see, like, pretty basic stuff. I mean, like, it's just, like give the track a little bit more like, uplifting feel. So the preset itself is very nice. It's a patch from Diva, and that's the name if you are interested in that. And I have just an EQ and super massive, again, pretty high with the mix, and this is the preset that I'm using. Sidechain and this filter, I guess I'm not even using it. So yeah, and just make it a little bit more wide in the mix, and that's pretty much it. And then we have this sound. I like these type of sounds a lot, and so this is how it sounds like. So I'm using like the older version of Serum here because I made this track, a while ago, and very simple sound, like very basic but very effective. So all it is like just two saw waves with this envelope shape, which is also controlling the filter, and that's giving it like that opening feel. And so you can choose, like how long it takes to open. And also, like, there are 8 voices of unison on both of these oscillators, which is giving that, like detuned feel. Pretty simple. And effects, I think, yeah, just basic stuff, nothing crazy. And then we have this ARP sound. So then this is, and this ARP is also basically, driving the track, making it like, more driving. If I just turn off this pad for now. So I love these kinds of sound, and this is again coming from like this. Pretty simple, like this is like the melody of the ARP. Um, Very basic pattern, but very nice. And in terms of like effects, I'm just using like an EQ to cut off the low end, some sidechain, and that's pretty much it. And this is the automation. Yes, I think I'm just using it to like introduce the sound. And then I have one more sound right here, which is like happening with this sound, and this is, let's turn on this automation. So I really like this sound. This is basically happening with this LFO. It's LFO1. This rate, which is basically controlled by like this LFO. So this LFO is controlling the rate, and this is at 0.1 hertz. So pretty fast. So it starts from, I guess, from 20-ish hertz and goes all the way to 0.1 hertz. So very nice sound. I like it. And there's also a filter cutoff automation. So it starts low and then opens up. And I also have an auto pan, which is basically, it's just moving the sound from left to right. Pretty interesting. And then I have this, this is basically like atmosphere. This is the vocal loop, not just loop. I think it's just like one shot for the vocal, I guess you can say. So I have like a huge reverb on this. So I'm using again like super massive, and the mix is at like 100%. So it's just acting as like an atmospheric bed, and this is the preset. Very nice. And I also have this automation, like for the filter, just keep it like more interesting. It's just opening and closing, some weird thing happening here, I'm not sure. So yep, just making it like a little bit more interesting in the mix. And I guess that's pretty much it for like the melodic section. Rest of them is just like pretty basic stuff, FX, one shot, uplifter, downlifter, and Let me just quickly go through, one by one. I'm not gonna really explain, like all of these. I have like pretty basic stuff, just EQ and sidechain, nothing else. So this is like that. Snare. I sometimes feels too lazy, to create my own. So I just use, like loops sometimes. Riser, more uplifting noise, and this is again snare. I think I just chopped off some this part and just put it right before the drop. And downlifter, more uplifter, again snare build up, more snares, and this one is reverb clap. So pretty basic stuff, just they help, to move from one section to another. Usually when I'm writing the track, these are the least important thing, for me. I do this section at very last, and I also recommend, doing this at the very last because for me it's like they're just it just helps, it doesn't make a big difference although, but it just helps to transition from one section to another. But if I don't play this entire group, your track should sound like pretty solid on its own. So yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it for the track. And if you are interested, I can quickly show what's on my master. So when I'm making the track, I do have this preset, you can say, from Ableton. This is, I think, one of the presets, if I'm not mistaken, the glue compressor. Where is it? Okay, right here. Sustain, yeah, this one. So this one I use. So I sometimes like to have something on the master just to basically feel the track while I'm writing it. But in terms of mastering, it's like pretty basic stuff. I mean, nothing crazy. So some EQ, which is basically removing the bass from the side and just boosting the high end a little bit. And then one more EQ, just addressing like this resonating frequencies, I guess. And then I have this compressor, just like a glue compressor, but I like to use this one. Then this one is just like an EQ, but on very just 10% basically, like not much. Then this one is like one of my favorite plugins, so it's a saturation plugin. When I bought this one, it was on sale, but if you guys can get this one, it's very nice. So I'm using like quite a bit of saturation right here, 45%, and also like giving the track overall air with this one. So I love this. And then I have Ozone, which is just basically like some imaging and a little bit of saturation, I guess, or exciter, but yeah, very basic stuff, just like low end and mids and highs. And then again, I have a free clip which is helping to cut the peaks before going into the final compressor, final limiter, I mean, and that's my final limiter, just limiting the sound, and that's pretty much it. This is span, just to monitor the mix. And this is also free just to check, how we are doing in terms of LUFS. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Alright, so that was the video. I hope you enjoyed it. So this track is released on Infinite Resistance called Singularity. So I'm gonna put down the link in the description so you can hear the full thing. So if you have any questions regarding any of the sounds or anything, just leave it in the comments. I'll get back to you. And so I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time, peace.